Welcome to Mental Health Monday and this segment of Unscripted Stories. We're so glad that you're joining us today. I'm Jerri Walker and I'm a mental health counselor. And I also have guests with me today. If you remember, last time we talked, we kind of unpacked what it's like to survive the holidays when you're also carrying this huge burden of grief and how that impacts us. And so today, as promised, I have two very good friends with me. I have Tracy Quissell and I have Adam Watkins, who have both experienced loss in their life, and we're just going to have a conversation, and as it happens, it happens. And so we're going to be real, we might be raw at some times, but that's grief. And so to get us started, I'm going to ask Tracy to tell us a little bit about the story of her loss that has happened in her life and her family.
So I was 13 years old when our family lost my brother to suicide. He was 18 years old. It was just a day before his 19th birthday. And it came after a long time and lots of years of struggle with depression, medication management, in and out of, hospitals, getting as much treatment as he could, and, my parents doing everything they could possibly imagine under the sun to help him. But he showed signs of depression as early as 5 or 6 years old. And so it was kind of one of those, I think, maybe inevitable endings that would have happened at some point had it not happened when it did.
So what time of year was that?
February 25th.
Okay.
So still, cold, dreary, dark winter in a small town.
Yeah. Okay. And Adam, for you, I know your loss has been so much more recent. So tell us about the loss that has happened for you.
On October 13th, my dad died. He was 79 years old. He wasn't really that old, and he died from a brain tumor, some cancer in the middle of his brain. It was so deep in his brain they couldn't find it for the longest time. They didn't know that it was there, and then when they finally found that it was there, it was too far gone for them to do anything to either treat him or to save his life. And so over the course of only about 10 months, he went from this hiking and camping person who's super active and working on his car and driving around his VW camper van, to slowly exhibiting symptoms like a stroke, sort of, where this tumor that was growing in his midbrain, right where all of the messages from your brain try to get to the rest of your body, they were just starting to get interrupted to his left side, and they didn't know what was happening, and he had a little bit of a heart arrhythmia as well, so it distracted them from the real problem. And they even diagnosed him with depression instead of a brain tumor. And so then when he fell down about 8 weeks ago, something like that, and went to the emergency room, they did an MRI, and then they followed up a couple of weeks later and found growth over 2 weeks. So this aggressive brain tumor was just going like gangbusters, and they did one more MRI to figure out what was happening with it and said, "We have nothing for you." And he heard that. He said, "I want to go home to hospice care." And then 2 days later, he died. And at about 3 o'clock in the morning. And our whole family was there except for my older brother who lives in Tennessee. But we all just have dealt with that loss just as recently as.
Wow, so this is really fresh for you and for your family. And here you are, Adam, you're approaching the first holiday season. and probably, you just think of, probably still a bit in shock. I mean, that happened so quickly when you think of just since the spring, and then to see that kind of a decline, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
And so, and I know for hearing you, Tracy, you were saying that there was that, you were aware, and maybe your parents were aware that the depression was real, and that they probably, were trying everything, and yet the outcome was so sad and so tragic for your family and for a young life at 18?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in both of these situations, I think this speaks so much to hopefully the audience that may be watching, whether the loss has been years ago or whether the loss has just happened. There's something about the holiday season that can be a trigger. I think it's just so steeped in tradition and in what families do come together. Healthy families, dysfunctional families, just families. We all come together and we do what we do. And so when loss enters our world, then it's just trying to figure out how, with this huge missing piece of the puzzle, how do we complete the picture now? And so when do you remember in those teen years, then you would have been entering, those important identity years, and then here's this huge loss that enters your life. Do you remember some of those early Christmases and the holiday time, what that was like?
It's hard to remember details because it's been, 29 years. But I remember it just, the little things being what was the hardest. Going to set the table and not setting it for 4, setting it for 3. That was, just those little things were hard. Figuring out, how do we celebrate this, this exciting, this momentous, this, beautiful holiday season that's supposed to be happy and bring about joy when someone so special is not even there. So how do you create this new normal? And you don't want to create a new normal. So you want the old normal. So just, it's hard to remember how we got through it. But it felt like we were really tiny. Like all of a sudden our family was just teeny tiny, with this integral, piece of us gone.
Yeah, I know. I hear so many times from clients that they walk into a store, they see the Christmas tree and all, and they feel like, doesn't anyone see that my heart is just exploding and it is breaking, and I am so just soaked with grief, and yet we don't know what to, it's like, what do you do? And yet within you're just carrying this huge load, and yet everyone is moving around and they're happy and they're laughing and yet it's just such a juxtaposition of I believe how we see ourselves. I know when my dad died, my mom died, the same thing. And so for you, Anne, this year, you're just entering into this. Have you had conversation with your family of how this is going to kind of roll out this year, or not?
Yeah, a lot of what my brothers and I and my family is pretty much all lives here, which is nice because then we can kind of surround my mom with the support that she needs. Because they've been married, they're married for 53 years. It's insane to think about having that sort of a length of a relationship and then just have it to be gone. And just earlier this morning, I was chatting with my mom about Thanksgiving, about what we were going to do. I had already talked with my brother, so we already had a plan. We're going to do this. She's going to be with us for the morning, and then we're going to ship her over to you guys for the evening. And and our families are so close that all of the in-laws also gather together. And so we just have tried to plan to give some sort of normalcy to my mom so that she can feel that love. But there's no way to help her to deal with all of the feelings I think that are going to happen, because you can't take somebody that quickly out of your life and expect it to just all be good. I know that this morning I checked a trail cam out in the mountains, and I found this video of this huge elk just walking across the camera, and I just immediately was like, ooh, I gotta send this to Dad.
Yes.
And and like you said, it's just this empty spot there that's where that sort of thing would have gone. It's where I would have talked to him about that. And I talked with my mom and had a conversation, and she said the same, that it was that just daily, how do I get by without my best friend, the person I know how to get along with the best. At the holidays, you don't go to meetings with strangers, you're volunteering, you do your thing, but you come home to what's comfortable, what's warm and safe as much as you can. And she doesn't have that. And so we've been struggling with our own grief, but we've been struggling also to try to make sure that my mom stays healthy and stays up, and so it's been that's been a real struggle. So the Thanksgiving bit, like we took our kids over at Halloween, that's a holiday. We could take the kids to trick or treat at the grandparents' house, and this year it was just my mom there, and so. So it's really been a struggle as we've planned for this first holiday season. I have no idea how it's going to go down. I really don't.
Right. And like you just said, it is so true. Grief, we tend to, sometimes we just need to be in our grief, and the thought of other people is just exhausting. And yet the holidays dictate, because of who we are, dictate that we get out of that and care for one another, which is another part of the dilemma and the burden and the joy of the holidays. And I think when grief enters our lives, then it just creates, I think that's why it is so hard, is that we have to care for so many more in different ways than we've ever had to care before, because everyone is hurting. Do you also find that in your families that you may not be grieving exactly the same way?
Sure.
People really have their own,
Well, I was just thinking about this taping, and I was thinking about how I have two brothers. I'm in the middle, and both my brothers are great guys, and I think about how different their mourning has been, and it is just it's really it's amazing to see the different personalities and how different things develop. But I think that in some cases it really does bring the best out in people, how they can help, how they can deal with some of these things. But others, like my older brother, can't even look at it or think about it. And when he does, it goes downhill for him very, very fast. And I feel like that he thinks that isolates him from people, and he doesn't like it, and so he just kind of keeps shoving it down. Whereas my younger brother just looks at it straight in the face all the time, and he's just thinking about it. He's in touch with it at all times. And but I'm interested about how it's going to be after as many years as you guys have had to deal with that. It's obviously a different circumstance, and it's much more, in my view, it would be way more traumatic. And I think about what will it be like 29 years on after there's only memories to think about, and I don't know how that goes.
Well, I think that, and every family handles things differently, and yes, we all do grief differently, even still this many years after. My mom and I, we talk about my brother a lot and the struggles and how hard they fought to save his life. And she still, to this day, we're in different places. Her grief is different than mine because of the relationship that they had. As a mother, I can't even imagine losing a child. So the perspective that I have is a little different. But, in my grief, over the years, I wanted to, and not right away, obviously as a teenager, but, as I grew up and had my own family, I wanted to do something for a cause. So, it's meant a lot to me to, want to help people who are suffering from depression or bring more awareness, be a part of the, suicide prevention and awareness, different events that go on. Whereas my mom has said to me, Tracy, when I see those come on my Facebook screen, I just can't put money toward it, I can't put effort towards it because I just don't know how it will help. We did everything we could, and it still didn't work, and so I just don't know what the answer is. And so that's where I see how we just deal with it differently even years down the road. But I think, I don't know, for me, what helped so much is just talking about David constantly, as much as I could. Probably to the point of annoying my friends even. Like, they were probably thinking as 14-year-olds, like, oh my gosh, he's gone. Why are you keep talking about him? But I had to do that to just keep his memory alive, because the thing that broke my heart the most is that people would think that he was not part of our family. And he certainly was, and I was not an only child. I'm not an only child. So just constantly talking about him as much as I could. The good things, of course, there were the hard memories too, but I think that helped in my grief.
Thank you for saying that piece of finding meaning. I think it is an option, and it's not for everyone, but I think as you move away from that initial shock and that first year, and then you do begin to think of what is it that will bring meaning or might make a difference in someone else's life. And I think that's why we do this. It's saying you can connect because this happens, our stories are real, and I think the more that we see that we are not alone, it does make a difference. And so thank you for sharing that piece, because that might speak to someone who's listening that, I hadn't really thought about who I could give to or what nonprofit that might really represent the essence of my loved one and their passion, and through a gift it can continue on. And so all of those things are very valuable. And I think when loss enters our world, we do become just on a journey of our own. We're just, even though there's people around, it is our journey of grief, and we grieve the way we live, and that's okay, and that is normal. And families that don't do it the same way is really normal, and that it's sometimes hard to respect and to acknowledge, but it is what grief is. And I think the more we tell those stories of how brothers don't always agree and parents and children don't always agree, it's okay. I've had many clients come to me and say, well, my husband just isn't crying, or my wife has never cried. Well, they might, give it time, and maybe they won't, or maybe they're not willing to do it in your presence. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that we show our grief. Are you going to do anything? You've said you're going to kind of be real aware of how your mother is doing and try to come together. Is there a tradition that you have kept through your family that is really important? And I know I'm putting you on the spot right now, and it's okay if you can't come up with anything, but is there anything that comes to your mind that oh no, this is something we're going to continue no matter what?
I don't know. I think that at the holidays, we always come together as a family. So we always, as extended family as well. So Lane, my wife, her folks live in Boise, so they will come over. My younger brother's in-laws actually come over as well. So we end up with always a huge house full of people, and that's never going to change. I don't think, no matter what. My older brother's son lives in Nampa as well, and he has his own family as well now. So we end up with this big extended group of people, and it's always this, this big thing of getting everyone together and having a big family get together on Thanksgiving and on Christmas at some point. If it's on Christmas Day, or maybe it's the Christmas Eve or whatever. But that sort of thing is definitely going to continue. And one of the things, my dad was a piano player, and he would come to our house to our piano that's way out of tune, it's horribly out of tune, and he would always just sit down, and then my nephew Isaac loves to sing. My younger brother would come over, he hates to sing at all times except during that time. Awesome. And they would just come around the piano, and my dad would sing some stuff. My mom would bug me until I would do it. And it was just this tradition that we would have someone sit down and do that. And I'm gonna beg my mom to do that, because she can play as well, to do some playing over the holidays. Because one thing that we're not going to do is, like you had said, we're not going to just ignore and not talk about it because it's painful. And for good or bad, my big brother is posting all these pictures that he's found on all my dad's computers and hard drives and all these other things. My dad was a photographer. He's just been posting all this stuff on Facebook. And I'm no longer on Facebook, my mom is. And she's just being destroyed by these posts, right? Like, she doesn't get any warning that he's going to post a picture of them on their wedding day, or him taking photos or doing something else like that. But it really has given her a chance to relive some of those memories without him there. And then she calls me and she talks to me about it.
Wow.
And I've talked to my brother about it too, and I kind of wish that he would talk to her before he would post the pictures. I thought, what an amazing bonding opportunity that would be. To talk about it before you post and give her some warning, and also think about what the background was and everything. But for the holidays, we will definitely just still do what we've done, which is get together and just remind each other that we're all there for each other. But this year, we're not going to avoid the topic, and
great.
It's going to be uncomfortable.
Yes,
it's not going to be cool. My little brother, this huge muscular guy, is going to be crying a lot. Yes. But I feel like it's the best thing for us.
And it's that next chapter, and I think your children also then will remember this year, oh yeah, it was different, but we heard stories. And that to me is just the best gift in terms of the reminder of the life, and that still carries on through you and you, Tracy, and they begin to have memories. You're building memories for them now, which is the beautiful part of just that, of how life happens, and especially at the holidays when the family is together. It's that opportunity, maybe unique to the season, when your kids will look back and go, oh yeah, remember, yeah. And Tracy, you hit on something about just telling the story, and it's been said that we begin to heal the moment we feel listened to. And I think that is pretty profound and so true when it comes to the grief process of telling your story as many times as you can to your friends, to anyone that you know can listen. And do you have still people in your lives that if you need to, and it's been years, but it doesn't matter because it's the holidays and we're triggered again. And plus it was your brother. You're never going to forget him. Never going to forget him. You're never going to forget your father. And so that need to sit with that and be with those memories again happen. And it's like what we've talked in our other briefs saying, sometimes it's just like waves that come up and just go poof, we've just gotten drenched again. We don't even know for sure why, but there they are. So you have people in your life still that can hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I have people from my hometown that I certainly could reach out to, and I post things on Facebook every once in a while when it's the year of his passing, or the week of when he passed, and it's really sweet to see his old girlfriends or just people from our hometown just remembering him and sharing their memories. That's really special. But I kind of unload and let it out sometimes very unexpectedly on Eric or sometimes on our kids, and sharing those stories, the funny ones and sometimes the hard ones.
And that how normal that is and how important it is. And you have a village I know around you too, Adam, that
I've felt heard by a lot of the people that are really close to me, and it's been very good. But strangely enough, last night I couldn't fall asleep, and I felt like I was thinking about things that related to my dad. And so I went out and I just wrote it all out. And sometimes I feel like even just that, just getting it out, does help. And so even if I don't have individuals to talk to about it, just getting it out on paper. When I was driving up to the mountains today, even just saying it out loud to no one in the car, it's good. I think that the feelings of loss combined with the feelings of heartbreak, because you lost your brother, but at the same time it was just in such a terrible way. My dad died, and he in his life he'd gone through some terrible experiences and things that I read in his writings that I just was just horrified by. And so it's not just the grief over the fact that the person is gone, it's about all of the things that happened in their life that then you have to come, and you're trying to balance them out somehow, balance out the good with the bad, come to a point in your life now that you can remember and say that it's okay now, that you feel, at least that I feel okay. This is the way I'm saying it, but and so I think that for me there's been this balance I've been trying to strike of my dad was never a perfect person, and so he may have failed me, and your brother, you may have felt like he failed you, and so there's some red in your ledger, and you're just trying to find a way to reconcile all of that out. And I've really found some great comfort in writing that stuff out and talking with others, like you said, and trying to. I'm not trying to gloss anything over and just middle child this thing. I just want to feel that balance, because maybe my dad wasn't perfect, but he was still my dad, and he was still a really important dude and in my life. So it's been a real. I'm sorry, I could go on and on because it's just so fresh, and I apologize. But this holiday season, like we were talking about, Steve, our friend Steve, lost his dad a week ago. My friend Luke just sent me a text message. You guys don't even know him, and he lost his dad almost the exact same day that I did. And we know the Ronert sisters that have suffered so much from the loss of their dad. One of those losses that you know that they will never fully recover from. And this time of year, it is just I have no idea how people get through it and how they muddle their way through.
Yes, there is a heaviness, I think, that, when we begin to lose light with the season, I think it's so symbolic and of how this season is a season of darkness. And when loss enters our lives, then it's for some especially, it is the darkest of the dark. And I think what you just said, Adam, is such a great tip for anyone that is listening that might not have the village, might be the introvert that just struggles to tell the story. You can write it, and you can talk to yourself. All of those things begin to, again, take you to that next chapter that you are now beginning to live. And it's the first chapter without your loved one. And it is, I don't think we are made to fully understand. I always see that, that first year especially, all the first Thanksgiving, the first Christmas, the first birthday, the first anniversary, all of those firsts are huge. And maybe even into the second year, because now the reality, I made it through the first year. I feel like, okay, I survived. And it's not going away. And so this is why we need always to keep talking about it, because grief is so big. It encompasses every cell of our being, and it affects our lives. And it is the price, as someone has said, that we pay for loving. And I think that is true, and we don't ever stop loving. And I love what you said about your family. You're not an only child. You are still, you have a sibling. He's not here. And you're still a son, and you will always be, and your dad is still there. He's just not here. It's just this strange place that grief lands us in. And being able to continually share about it, talk about it, find support. How important, we are sitting in a church, so we will obviously turn a little bit to our faith. How important, or how did you find that to be an important part of for you, Tracy, the journey you've been on, and even in the short time, how has that ministered to you?
Well, I think that, when this all happened in our lives, my family, we were not churchgoers at all. The only reason I was going to church was because I was invited by a friend, and we became best friends, and she was the pastor's daughter, and so that kind of started my journey in the church. Not being there because of being dragged to church every Sunday by my parents, and so that was really my stability and my rock, was having that faith as a young 13-year-old, even though it was very new, very fresh for me, and having the people in the church to support me, even though they did not understand what I was going through at all, and couldn't relate personally, they were still there for me. And that was really important. And I think that I wouldn't probably be in the church and be, a believer had I not, entered into that experience when I did, especially because of the trauma that would come a year later. I think it was just perfect timing that I had those relationships already started and built before that happened. So, I don't know if I answered your question even,
that placed you in a community. And I think more than anything, it is what can make the difference, is to know we're a part of something bigger. And Adam, I know your church has always been, and faith has always been such a...
But strangely enough, I don't I don't have a lot of certainty about what's happened with my dad, and I've stopped trying to find it.
Yeah.
Because I just don't. It's not worth my time right now to try to figure that out. I don't need to be certain about what's going on with my dad, and where his, or try to figure out what heaven is like, or what other thing, or any of that. I have no clue. I have no idea, and I don't even want to try to figure it out. And I don't want to try to cling on to some sort of false certainty that I really won't be able to bank on, because it's just. It's like foundations that you build. If you build it on a foundation that eventually falls apart, it's gonna hurt much worse. And I've been talking with my kiddos about where Grandpa Gordon is, and I had a cat that passed away about a year ago or something. And so my kiddos talk about Grandpa Gordon and Pepper are in heaven together, and but they don't really talk about heaven. They just talk about the fact that they are in a better place. But I will never forget, and I said this in the service for my dad, that my daughter came to me, and after my cat died, and it was just ridiculous, and she came to me, and she was 4.5 at that point. And she held my hand and she said, "Dad, don't worry. When it's our turn, we'll see him again." What 4.5-year-old says this? And I don't know if that would, and I talked about that in the service for my dad, that I don't know what's happened. I don't know where his immortal soul goes. I have no idea where all of that stuff happens. And I know that there are people who are looking for comfort in that sort of faith. But I have no clue. I really don't. But like you said, the price of our life of adventure that we get to lead, and of love that we get to lead, is that someday it comes to an end, and then we get to figure out what's going to happen. And I don't know anything about what God has engineered for heaven. I feel like that a lot of the stuff that we talk about with the afterlife is just so manufactured, and so has been influenced by thousands of years of tradition rather than what really is going to happen. Because we have no clue.
Right.
We really have no clue. But I think about the fact that the way our lives are structured and the way that we live here on this earth, there's just no way that heaven's not going to be, something that is a much more amazing experience that encompasses all that we've experienced here plus more. And so it's not going to be something incomprehensible. It's going to be something new and amazing. And I don't think that I will struggle to find my dad's face in the crowd someday when it's my turn,
Yeah.
And so I don't have a lot of certainty. So I think that some people will be like, well, doesn't that give you faith? It really doesn't, because finding comfort in that uncertainty has been the real challenge. So.
And so maybe, and I love you, and that's a whole nother episode, just
absolutely.
maybe like 6 or 7 episodes. But I love how you said that, and the uncertainty. And so maybe it's about, or do you think it's about more what you do know, and the faith in the predictability of a family, of dysfunction in family? You can trust that. You can trust the love and honesty of your children, of what the holidays have brought and will continue to bring. And maybe that, do you think that is possibly what can bring comfort? And because you're right, grief lands us on something that it feels our equilibrium is just kind of taken away for a while, and we're trying to find footing on something that we've never had to do before, and our balance is off, and that to me is grief. And so And so it is that finding that place of rest and predictability and comfort within what we know that can take us through possibly. And you're right, who knows? But it's that wonderful thing to think about, and for some, that need to know is of all importance, and they hang all of their belief on that, and that's okay. And it's okay to not know that as we.
This holiday season though, it's so weird, right?
It is weird.
With COVID, a lot of the family gatherings are going to be much smaller.
Yep. Right.
And I think that for people who have experienced this kind of loss, it could really hurt a lot worse.
Yes.
Because you, like you had mentioned, you can't surround yourself with as many people
Right.
just logistically.
You don't get to keep those
Right.
traditions
Yeah.
going
Right.
and keep those traditions strong, because some of them you won't even have the luxury of repeating.
And COVID isolates you from
Right.
people, and like you were saying, trying to talk with others and communicate, you get that taken away. I mean, it's not. I've been talking with the people that I mentioned and trying to keep, touch base with them, because I feel like that this season is going to be very difficult for a lot of people when it comes to grief, because it's logistically you can't surround yourself with what you need and what you need.
We actually 2 weeks ago when I taped called it kind of the perfect storm, because not only are you dealing with the loss of a loved one, you're dealing with the holiday seasons and you're dealing with a pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have guessed? So it does set up a whole new set of challenges that have not been present. So more than ever, the importance of reaching out to those you can, even if it is texting. I love the idea of just checking in with others that are going through a difficult time, because when you just give them a gift of I remember, and when others remember your loved one, there's nothing like that. And so that gift that you can give, and all the other kinds of social media, whatever it is you do just to reach out during this time, more than ever, I think everyone needs to know they're part of something bigger. We are connected. And as we kind of wrap this up today, and we could go on, and I do appreciate your willingness to be here today, and it takes courage, always takes courage, to tell the story, to be vulnerable again. And yet when we do that, and when you do that, I know people that are listening, you have given them ideas, you have validated for them today what they're going through, and it's just, again, that aha, that connection. I'm not alone. They're going through it, I'm going through it. Okay, I feel like we're going to get through this. And it is, and I'll say it again, healing begins when you feel listened to. So I encourage you, if you are out there listening, write your grief story down if you cannot find someone to talk to. If you are at a place where you are struggling to the point that you can't see past this moment, please do one of two things. Either email the church, and our email will be up there, and I will get that email and I will answer it. Or call your medical doctor and let them know how you're feeling right now, because there's help, and that help comes in that reminder again that you're not alone and that you can be connected to something bigger. We're all in this together. I believe we will get through it, but we need each other. And that's the power and the beauty of community. Thank you for joining us again today, and again, reach out to us if we can be of any help. Thank you.